Blackballed. 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 Blackballed.
What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. It's been a crazy week on Blackballed, I'm not going to lie. We have had P-Gate, which implicates a former Attorney General of Alberta to have his buddies pee on children's toys. So that was fun. Lee Aaron told me to kiss her ass, and I told her I would happily oblige. And you know, we've talked cults. So what we thought we would do today, what I thought I would do today is have someone on the show where I can just be myself and I don't have to worry about stress. And he's a great guest, and you all love him. I know you do, because I get emails when I say he's going to be on the show. And so I would like to introduce my guest today. He is Mr. Spencer Rice, aka Spenny. Spenny, how are you, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
I am also well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't know about P-Gate. I happened to watch the Lee Aaron thing.
Yeah.
And that was funny. What's P-Gate? I love this.
Oh, P-Gate is so David Wallace, he was hired to go out west to be a political fixer for many conservatives. One of them is Jonathan Dennis, who even set him up with a house. And when David Wallace blew the whistle on the on the Richard Marsh thing with the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church and refused to hand him over to the cult, Jonathan Dennis quickly, allegedly, made things impossible for David at where the house that he set him up, and basically got him evicted for no real good reason. And then next thing you know, he can't get his stuff. It's locked in there and they won't let him get it. And then Jonathan Dennis came personally to pick up his stuff. And then the stuff that he picked up were like kids' toys and a chair. And then the next day he saw on Twitter that someone had posted his kids' toys in a chair, claiming that they were pissed on. And
like a fetish?
What's that?
Like a fetish?
Like, no, just like, hey, fuck you, David Wallace. We're pissing on your kids' toys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Really kind of like serial killer stuff, like really weird shit. But, he's obviously just a misunderstood former attorney general, justice minister. He's the same guy. I don't know if you saw that was the video. All these videos came out of him mocking an indigenous accent. Do you remember that from a couple weeks ago or whenever that was, a month ago? Same guy. Yeah. So he's one of those well-rounded assholes where it's just, it's not just one-dimensional with him. He's got many dimensions to his asshole.
Can we talk about David Wallace's hair for just a second? It's a sort of...
I would love to.
It's not working for him, I have to say. Very handsome guy. He doesn't need the Fabio hair thing. It makes him look very, fancy boy-like. I don't mean gay. I mean just, like...
I'd give him like a David Beckham haircut or something,
He doesn't
like modernize him a bit.
If he had an ugly face, maybe I could see why he would go for that look. But maybe he was buttoned down when he was a fixer, and now he's out of that game, and he's ratting out the good people that deserve to be ratted out. And he just said, "Fuck it, I'm going to grow my hair." But he shouldn't comb it so much. It's over. It looks too coiffy.
How long have you been an image consultant to political fixers?
You know what? I have a horrible fashion sense. My wife doesn't even want to be seen with me half the time, but I do react to certain things that I see viscerally. And when I see a guy who's good looking and would look really good with a short haircut, and he's got some kind of Fabio overblown long hair, there's no reason for it. It's just a pain in the ass. For I guarantee you, he has got to comb it. He's got to blow dry it. He's got to, at least, I like the sort of oily, dirty look from the, like a 60s kind of dirty hippie hair look. I don't like a dirty body per se, but that's
Well, that's good. Who do you think would play him in a movie?
Fabio,
I think it's
which
going to
would
be
be
Fabio.
hilarious, by the way. Fabio, until he cuts his hair. Uh, I haven't really thought about that, but that's good. If there's any money in it, I'll write the script. I love hearing about sort of U.S. Rat fucking politics in Canada. I don't know why. It's very refreshing.
I don't remember ever hearing about a rat fucker whistleblower, like a political trickster whistleblower. Like
Canada, yeah,
someone made the example. Someone gave the example of what's that guy's name? Take me to Roger Stone. Roger Stone.
yeah,
But it's like Roger Stone operated in the open. He was never like no one knew who David Wallace was.
right,
Oh, except for every single politician.
right. Right, they would know. Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
about him till either you or Dean. I saw him on one of your podcasts, and I
Yeah.
watched it, and I was quite fascinated with it. And I wanted to sort of, I couldn't tell if he was full of shit and just a brilliant self promoter, which I love that too. If it turns out that he was, sorry, this chat thing's covering your face.
Hmm.
So if he was, you know, uh, a real guy, because we all like a good con. I mean, if there's one thing I like about Trump, who I hate, is that he's a con man. I mean, everybody likes a con man. You have to kind of dig it. Which, by the way, have you seen this? It's a Netflix series now. Why does the chat thing keep popping up? No matter how.
Just go to full screen if you don't like that.
Oh, I don't like it. Okay,
Okay.
there we go. So,
Okay.
it's called. What's it called? It was a story I wasn't aware of with Pepsi Cola and the
Hmm.
Harrier jet. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I saw the little preview screen on Netflix, but I haven't clicked it yet. Yeah.
It's wonderful. I loved it. It was about 4 episodes long, and it was to me Americana, like completely only in America could this story happen with the characters that were in it and just the story itself. I highly recommend it.
What is it like? Give me the premise, because from what I understood, the premise was like some guy wanted like he won a rocket or something, or a plane
No,
or
what
something.
happened was, well, we don't really know, but
Oh,
Pepsi put a commercial out during its heyday when it was the Cola Wars, right? Coke versus Pepsi. And the idea they had was sort of a simple sales marketing idea, which is if you buy a certain amount of Pepsi, you get points, and you can redeem the points for a prize, right?
right.
So they produced a commercial, and the commercial was leather jackets, sunglasses, be cool. Coke's not cool. Get our gear, buy our product. And the very end of the commercial, it was like a school, and the kid who was, clearly winning everything from this contest, uh, shows up in a Harrier jet, which lands like a helicopter, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see where this is going.
And then it says Harrier jet 70 million or 7 million points or whatever. So this kid, he was a kid back then. He started to think about it. He watched the commercial. He freeze framed, and he said, "This is a legit offer." So he figured out that he could if he could get the jet, it would only cost him roughly $700,000,
Oh.
and then he would get a jet that was worth 45 million. It was a profit thing, but it turned into, I don't want to give anything away,
Yeah,
the court case of how the legals, he partnered with this Jewish guy. I think he was Jewish, named Hoffman. He was a real character, very interesting guy. And he had the dough to put up for the 700,000. And he was kind of like a bit of a rebel like you, James. So he just liked to kick
whoa.
everybody in the face.
Yeah, yeah.
So he said, "Oh, you know what? This is, well, let's take it to a lawyer." The lawyer said, "I think you have a case here," and he gave him a ton of money to buy a massive amounts of the product. But I don't want to say any more than that.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I could use a Harrier jet, Spenny. You know.
You know, I flew in Kenny versus Spenny as a humiliation. I flew in a Vietnam era uh, jet, but it was a propeller jet. But we did the corkscrews and the 360s, and it was insane.
Yeah.
I don't really have a desire for that. I think what the what's interesting about the film is, was it just a pure money grab based on a mistake? that Pepsi made, or did Pepsi just make a joke that was interpreted as something real? And then you don't really ever know what the truth is, but you get to see all the legal battles and what happened.
Advertising was weird back then. Like like Coke and Pepsi were allowed to really go at each other at one point. You remember? And then there came the time where it was just like, oh no, you can't show their logo or say their name, but you can imply that it might be Coke.
Right.
You know,
I think
the
even
leading brand. You know,
if I recall, some of them, they were like the brand for both of them was in the same commercial, like the taste.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but
no, I think you're right. And I think they put a stop to that really quick because it got a little dirty.
well, the taste test was sort of a thing that ran through the whole series with any new character. They're not characters; they're real people in the documentary. They would, at the end of their part of the story, they would do a test with the Coke and Pepsi test. Anyways, terrific series. I highly recommend it.
Okay, well, I will definitely give that away. I kind of avoided it. There's so much that I've like. Netflix is becoming like Blockbuster Video was, where you spend like an hour just like walking around and looking at, titles.
I have it. Here's my thing. I grew up. I'm old enough now. I grew up. There was no cell phones. There was no smartphones. There was no computers. There was no internet. That's how I grew up in the 70s. And when I was, of that age. So now I'm not so old that I can't use that stuff. So I'm perpetually blown away by the technology, the choices we have, the good and the bad that comes with it. And I love TV. I'm unapologetic. I've been public about it as much as anyone gives a shit. I've always, because I remember Bruce Springsteen wrote a song called 57 Channels and Nothing's On. Do you remember that song?
Yeah. Yeah,
I made me angry because I didn't even have 57 channels. And I was like, well, I want 57, I love television. I love television. Mostly documentaries and news, but, and
do you not get annoyed at commercials because of how, I
mean, you don't really have commercials on the streaming sites, which is kind of good, but the commercials never really bothered me that much. I mean,
yeah, there's people that like TV is almost nostalgic now. Like, I don't know. I had this weird thing when I was younger where I could have seen Die Hard or something millions of times if I like say I had the DVD, but if I was running through the channels and it just happened to be on some channel, for some reason that seemed more special. It's like I own the movie, but it still seemed like, and I think it's because we kind of like subconsciously realize that other people are sharing that experience with us at the same time.
But with commercials?
Yeah, even with commercials.
It makes no sense because, first of all, they've edited the movie probably.
TBS was the worst at that shit.
Right.
They used to say like you ever tried watching The Breakfast Club even on TBS? It's like
no, but I love that movie. I love
it. So do I.
Look, it makes no sense what you're saying because you're acting like a collective communal experience, but you're not. You're still in your house. So
I know it doesn't make sense, but I still felt the vibe that it was more special to watch it when you didn't have control over like stopping it and whatever it was, I don't know what it was, but it would seem more special than just the DVD in the corner. I don't know. It sounds weird.
Everything, all of it, but like pornography, just when that came out, and it wasn't. I mean, I was old enough to remember when I was living in. My mom had moved to actually California when I was a kid, and I'd go visit her. My parents divorced, and I remember there was some guy who had a 16 millimeter print of Deep Throat, right? Wow. And so a bunch of people went over to watch it, and then when I think about that, what a rare experience that was to what's going on now with pornography. I mean, if you don't like pornography, I guess it's a bad thing. If you like it, it's the greatest time to be alive, right? Because
well, I think of my kids. Like, I'm just like, what world are they going to grow up in? Like, I'm like you. The first time I saw Playboy, and I know this sounds like a Stand By Me, like, cutting room floor scene or something, but it literally was like there was a tree. So I lived in Whitby, and there was like Otter Creek, and then this like big hill, and then like a soccer field. And then at the end of the soccer field was just fields to like Pickering, which is all subdivisions now. And there was a tree there that had got struck by lightning, and it kind of made like a thing that you could stand in, like at the top. Like it was almost like you could three like kids could just sit in there and hang out. And we went up there once, and there was a stack of Playboys there. And I was such an idiot. I immediately felt like weird and guilty. I was like 6, and I just brought them home to my mom. And I'm like, I found these. Which I think was probably the right thing because I was 6, right?
No, it was the dumbest thing you could ever do. I used to love 6 as young. What I loved was the Penthouse Forum, which was Penthouse was, of course, the slightly dirtier version than Playboy, which
But
I
it was
liked.
more literature. It was the
It was
literature
the
part.
literature that really
Yeah.
made me aroused,
Yeah.
not the picture so much. So,
All right. All
which
right.
makes sense in my entire career, which has a lot of sex projects in it, as well as my sex life, which is very fantasy role playing. I like all that stuff.
Really?
Oh yeah.
What
Now,
kind of
I
role
mean,
playing do you like?
now I'm an old kecker, whatever.
Like,
But
are you a voyeur? Like, do you like to watch your
no,
wife with other people and stuff like that?
no,
Like,
no, no,
okay, I'm
no,
just
no.
wondering. It's just seeing how
No,
far the
role.
rabbit
No,
hole goes.
I don't. I'm not judging it. That's just totally not my thing. No, no. Role playing fantasy. The idea that you're doing something wrong is the greatest thing in the world. Like the whole free love hippie thing. I never. I was too young, first of all, but that ethos drives me crazy. I no. I want clothing. I want.
Oh,
I want some kind of feeling that we're in doing something nasty and wrong. I mean, purely fantasy, of course.
yeah.
Uh, but I
Well,
have
you
no.
have to live your life like that. Then maybe you really can die hard, right? Anyone? Yeah. Did you get your start at Yuck Yucks?
No, I've not, I know. No, well, Yuck Yucks. In a way, yes. Not my start, but my cousin Marjorie, who ended up. I have to say this because then people maybe will pay more attention. She ended up. She wrote 4 Seinfeld episodes. She wrote on Square Peg. She wrote on the Larry Sanders Show. She was a successful writer out in L.A. She passed away a long time ago. She's my hero, and she was. Probably the first female stand-up comic in all of Canada, and I was madly in love with her, not romantically, because she loved the Beatles. She was into movies, and she loved television. So when she was first starting out, she would play. Initially, it was a place down on the Harborfront. It was a monthly festival that named Mark Breslin. I don't know if you know him. He's the guy who owns Yuck Yucks. He used to put on these shows before there was a Yuck Yucks. And then, so she used to go down there and perform. And then he opened up a club on Church Street. And sure enough, she would go, I would go. I was underage. It didn't matter. So I grew up with her as my hero, actually. So,
Yeah. I
but
actually,
the only time I played Yuck Yucks, this is actually a funny story. Because my thing is, I put a lot of time into my music, and I put a lot of time into Kenny versus Spenny.
Hmm.
The stand up I started doing when I was living in California. It's a life calling, man. To be a great stand up is a life calling, no question about it. And you don't know of too many legendary stand up comics who didn't spend their entire life honing their craft. So I did that with music.
yeah.
And but when I tried to do stand up, because I had Kenny versus Spenny, and I just wasn't very good, because
Yeah.
I could have been great. I'm obviously a verbal person, but I lost a lot of years to playing guitar and doing my thing, and I don't regret it. But so the one time I just decided I was going to try stand up, I went to Yuck Yucks, and Mark Breslin, that guy I was telling you about, he was there. And I remember I came off stage. I'd written material. I'd done it in open mics in LA and stuff. And, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. And I just remember his face when I came, off stage. It was like, because I was trying to do this sort of Richard Lewis, neurotic Jew.
Was it that face?
No!
Hi, Mark.
Yes! There he is.
Can you hear me? I just want to make
we
sure
can hear just fine.
the mic's on properly.
Yeah,
Can
the
you
mic
hear
is
me?
fine. Mark
Unfortunately,
Breslin, ladies and gentlemen, the founder of Yuck Yucks, is here. Do I know Mark Breslin? Of course I do, Spenny.
Holy shit. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm a little flummoxed.
James will know. James knows everybody who does something for free.
That's true.
Mark,
it takes one to know one, right?
Yeah,
give
of course.
them an honest assessment of my stand-up. I was just telling him the story. I guess this was all prearranged. You didn't just show up. Right.
Forgettable.
Yeah. Okay.
Unimpressible. I don't know. I don't think that Spenny spent a lot of time caring about a stand-up act, because if he did, he would have come up with something. But I just don't think he was never one of those guys. And you have to be that kind of guy to grind out 5 sets a night. And it's like boxing. People ask me why I don't occasionally do stand up, and I tell them that's not something you do occasionally. It's something you do all the time, like boxing. Otherwise, you're going to get punched out of the ring.
That's what I just said.
Yep.
See, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I
not
was
something
a
you do
casual.
occasionally.
I was a casual guy. I think I could have been good if I spent years and years and years honing my craft, but I did. I did it with music, and I'm
Well,
no
you know
good.
what's interesting? What's interesting about stand-up is that it doesn't feel like technology doesn't touch the craft. I don't think, because you kind of have to do it in person. You know, like with music production, technology has like completely changed the game, film, TV, all that kind of stuff. But stand-up, it feels like it will never change, and that's like for our benefit, right? Like how would you change stand-up unless you found a way to make people really like prefer it watching on a screen than in person, which seems weird because the comedian doesn't want that, right?
Well, you know, live theater is ancient, and it goes back as far as the Greeks and probably back before them, people talking about the hunt. And in a sense, stand up is still people talking about the hunt, except they're hunting for pussy. But it is all about the hunt. So, you know, there's a lot of people who will try to connect with me and say, I should play your club. I have 1 million views on TikTok, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what we really do when we're trying to entertain people with stand up. It's some guy dancing in a weird way and then, you know, taking a peach and ramming it in his ear. It's not exactly for the ages. You're going to see so many of these people come and go and be completely forgotten.
Yeah. One of the main reason why yeah, go ahead.
No, I totally agree with him, and I said that before I knew he was even going to be on. It's a life calling. It really is, and I wish it wasn't, but I'm an honest person, and I know the people that see. By the way, I had the honor of inducting Mark into the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame the other night, which was a real thrill for me. I hope I did you justice. I was
You
surprised.
did.
Okay, good.
You did. It was a very, very nice speech and nice intro. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Was there any?
I was very
Do you
impressed
have
with. Can I
personal?
just say that? What?
Go ahead,
No, I was
please. I
very
don't want to
impressed
cut you.
with John Doerr. I thought he was fucking hilarious.
Well, he's always been great, and I always thought he was kind of Canada's Steve Martin, because in the way that he kind of sucks you in with the setup and then twists it around, very Steve Martin, and that's a
Yeah,
big compliment,
yeah, for
obviously.
sure. Yeah, I'm trying to set up a little tour with him where I open for him with music. So
Oh, that's interesting. That
yeah,
sounds
I
great.
think it'd be fun. But I'd love to work with him. Anyways, it was just so great. I mean, Mark is ground zero for comedy for me in my life, as well as for the country. You got the Order of Canada, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
I
2017. That's not even an arts award, you know. I mean, most of the people get it for some kind of research or philanthropy purposes. And there's some people who get it for the arts, but out of, let's say they induct 60 people a year, maybe 5 or 6 have something to do with the arts, and very rarely does it have anything to do with comedy. I think I'm the only person in the history of the Order of Canada to get it for anything relating to stand-up.
Okay, I was going to say this SCTV must have
The SCTV people, many of them have it, but that's sketch. That's sort of a
right
bit
sketch
different.
comedy.
But even so, there's not that many. None of the kids in the hall, I believe, have an Order of Canada. It's something that they tend to give you toward the end of your career, no matter what your career is.
Right.
But you're kind of like the comic whisperer, like you know how to find talent. Like you can kind of see in them in the same way that like an athletic scout can see, like, you know, I know that kid's gonna be something. Like, what do you think you owe that to? Where do you get that instinct?
I don't know. I mean, it's why, you know, A&R people go and they watch 16 bands on a show and they pick out the 12th one and go, that's the one. And it turns out to be, you know, somebody unbelievable. But and you just have ears. I mean, I look for certain things. I have a background in literature. That's what I have my degree in. And from the very beginning, I treated stand-up as if it were literature, oral literature, which means I took it seriously. And I applied the same standards to stand-up that I would to a novel or to poetry. And in fact, it has a lot in common with poetry because both things are an art of compression. Every word counts. It's also very personal. Before I got into stand-up, just before, for a brief time, I was really into booking singer-songwriters. And when you think about it, they're also doing a similar kind of thing. It's a personal vision. It's one person talking to a room. One has a guitar. The comics don't have guitars generally, but it's something I have I guess a feeling for, of somebody expressing their inner anguish, pain, fun, all the rest of it.
Is there not a Jew component to it? Because I feel like I think that Jews in comedy, there's something there for me. Which isn't to say you don't have to be Jewish to be hilarious, obviously. But
Are you saying the Jews control comedy, Spenny? Is
Yeah, I
that
was
what
just
you're trying
gonna.
to-
I think a guy did that on Saturday Night Live a couple of weeks ago and got into some trouble.
That's
So,
because he
well,
cared.
you know
Yeah.
what? Here's the thing, and as a Jewish person, I'll tell you, and I'm always looking for anti-Semitism. I didn't think that was a particularly anti-Semitic screed, because if Jews for the last 100 years have been bragging about how they created Hollywood, well, let's own
I
it.
don't. I never
I
Who would
understood
you
what
like
the
to have?
problem would be.
Wait a minute. Who would
I
you
never
like
un-
to have running Hollywood? Who would you like to be in charge? The Dutch?
Hey, excuse me, I'm half Dutch. Let's actually, I don't give a fuck. I don't care.
My point entirely.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
You know,
it's like
you're just
saying,
lucky. I'm half Italian. You're just lucky it's not Italians that run it.
look, it's like
We'd all be
whispering,
fucked.
the black people, they control basketball.
right,
It
right.
seems lesbians are very active in editing films.
And the
There just
softball
seems to be
community.
places that are natural places for people to be, and one of them is that Jews tend to be people of the book. They're natural storytellers. They have been since for 5,000 years. There's all kinds of reasons, and it wasn't that long ago, less than 100 years ago, when Jewish people couldn't do what they wanted to do. They were shut out of a lot of professions, and so they went into show business. There were no barriers to entry.
There must
Which
have
is
been a lot of
very
barriers.
similar to, can I
there-
just say this? Very similar, and I think Mark taught me this, which is, what blacks are talking about in stand-up comedy now, the Jews talked about years before. Very similar. We don't fit in, we don't belong, and nobody wants us, right?
Well,
Yeah,
when are they?
basically, you
I
work
just want to
best.
know, just if I may, just for a second, then I'll let
Yeah.
you guys go back at it because I'm enjoying this. But when are they going to lift the barriers so more Jews can be professional athletes? Like, when's that going to stop? Sorry.
I don't know anything about sports, so I
No, but that was
Exactly.
a witty
Exactly.
rejoinder to that.
But there was a great joke in Airplane, which was written by a Jew, where they're boarding the plane and they're passing out magazines or newspapers, and they go, "Here's a pamphlet of famous Jewish athletes."
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's what.
yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
joke.
that's like the big book of German humor. Um,
It's all one word. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so you were going to say something, Mark, before I cut you off. I'm sorry.
I
I
can't
just
remember
I wanted to
now.
make my politically
Can't
incorrect
remember.
joke.
You
can't
don't
remember what I was saying.
But I wanted to
Stream
say
of consciousness.
that just talking about Mark for a sec, the commitment level, which I think to be great in anything, business, sports, acting, comedy, there has to be that commitment. And I knew he was a committed person to what he did for two reasons. One was I was at York University and I found myself in a comedy class, talk about a liberal arts education. And I asked Mark because I was a terrible student. I thought the teacher would like me more if I had somebody come up as a guest lecturer. And he schlepped up to wherever, Kiel and God's country there, and you did a lecture. And you were talking about Sam Kinison, who I'd never heard about at the time, and it was amazing. The second thing was I did a movie called Confessions of a Porn Addict, which was a mock documentary, and I casted Mark as my porn sponsor. Like there was a Porn Anonymous type of thing. And he was just so good and took it so seriously, more seriously than I did. And I was the writer and director. It was incredible to see his commitment to the craft, his commitment to comedy. And you'd see him at the film festival. And how many films would you see at a film festival?
Oh, well, yeah, I would take the 10 days off and probably see about 45 films.
What?
It only stopped when COVID came in, and now I'm nervous about
You're
going to that many.
you're the OB, the original binger. I've never heard of that. Like 45
No,
movies.
but he didn't watch TV.
There was a whole crowd of us who used to do that. And that
Wow.
was also in the days when you bought a pass, it was very well priced and you got a lot for it. If you knew how to play it and how to hack it, you could really see a lot of stuff for a comparatively reasonable amount of money. Now it's
I used,
unaffordable.
I used to
Mark
live in the
after
Manulife
Mark
Center.
night,
I
we'd go see. Yeah, Mark was the MC, and he was basically doing a kind of Rickles, tearing apart the audience. It was always fucking hilarious. As I said in your inductive speech, God forbid you're a Jewish princess sitting in the front row. He would just tear them to shreds, but it would be just hilarious. And then afterwards, a few times you used to go out with me. We would go out to I guess, the Bloor Street Diner, and you would walk in, like talking to everybody. It was such a I'm an antisocial person, so I'm attracted to people that are the opposite, right? And you blew my mind always with how you were performing all the time, on and off. You were on.
Well, we used to call it the third show. There
Right.
were 2 shows you did on a Saturday night, and the third show is when you went to Bemelman's and you played the tables. And that was in some ways more fun than actually doing the shows at Yucks. But yeah, I've always been a really social person. I kind of make friends easily. I also make enemies easily. But I always like to interact with people. That's always been part of the fun.
Yeah.
Why do you make enemies easily? Just curious.
Well, I have strong opinions and strong ways of doing things that don't necessarily make people comfortable. I'm better at it now. I've learned how to diffuse situations, but in my past and in my youth, I did not do that.
Is there like I used to think that like sometimes for some people, the thing about them that made them flawed and the thing about them that made them great kind of overlapped sometimes, where you know what I mean? Where it's like that person might not work well with others, but he's a genius. Like, did you have a little bit of that in you where it was like, I just know the answer. I don't need help with this. Like, was it that kind of thing?
Well, kind of. And also what I was doing was very different from the traditions of what was happening in this country. I mean, I remember painful meetings with the CBC, for instance, in those early days when they just couldn't even understand why I would want to do what I was doing. They just couldn't understand. And to this day, I've barely worked for them, even though I have my Order of Canada. I have, this new award. I don't think it means a lot to them.
You know how many people that I know who have pitched shows, got the shows accepted, and then they just cycle out the people that chose that show. And when the new person gets there, they cancel all the shows that they bought.
Yeah, but I have to tell you that that's normal for a network. Any network, even in the States, will do that.
Yeah, I know it's normal, but why? Why is that normal? Like, it's just like
because you want to be able to be responsible for your own choices and your own decisions, because then you can say, hey, I brought you Seinfeld, not this other guy who was working here before I worked here brought you Seinfeld.
And there's also a turnover too with the executives that people forget, where Kenny and I were persona non grata at Comedy Central until someone changed the network, and the guy loved us, so we got on Comedy Central. Same with Single White Spenny and Kenny's show, right? The Can West Global was taken over by another conglomerate, new executives, different agenda. And now Showcase, we used to be the Trailer Park Boys and Kenny versus Spenny and funny sex shows. And now it's like hot women cops, because agendas change and jobs change.
But I should point out that these changes in jobs don't happen all that much here in Canada, because once you hit a job, an executive position that pays $125,000 a year, you keep it, because there isn't another one to replace it.
Right.
Yeah, these are all things that I find really archaic now, though. Like I've been in that situation where I've pitched shows that have been accepted, and then I was cycled out because a new executive came in, and I'm just like, I feel like we normalize things that are really unfair. That's all. Like if you represent a company and they green light a show, then you should honor that. You know what I mean? Like, well, I know maybe I'm sounding naive, but maybe I'm
naive.
Also, yeah, but maybe
you're
I'm
naive and you used the F word,
well,
which you should never ever use. It's not right in polite company. The word, I'll say it, fair. You should never use that word, because it just doesn't have any application whatsoever in the world that we live in.
I think that we're saying the same thing, but I'm saying that I don't think it should be like that. I actually don't think it's like that much anymore because of how much the internet has given us independence. And so I think that independence proves that it's maybe I won't use the F word, but it's unequal. And I guess I understand to a certain point why it should be unequal, but it's also lacks integrity, and that's kind
But
of
you
what
have you can't have this conversation about Canada without saying that a lot of the money to fund these shows come from the government. I mean that
Yeah.
there was a time where it was just entertainment kind of flew under the radar in Canada, and a bad show could stay on the air for 15 years. Nobody
Yeah.
really cared. But now with the woke stuff and everything like that, it's a whole different ball game right now.
Well, there's also
And
really bad shows. Like, do you remember Train 48? Like, that was
America's
a
a
horrible
slave
show.
to the dollar, right? Canada can be seen as a slave to the culture or the politics in a way.
Hmm. Yeah. Are you
Do you
okay, Mark?
disagree?
Yeah.
You do?
What?
What's that?
Do you disagree?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
He asked me if I was okay.
Yeah,
want
I'm
him to
still thinking
define his
about the fair
terms.
thing, and I feel like I know that you're right, and it bothers me.
Well,
It bothers me a little.
yeah, you can't do much to change it at all. So you have to kind of work within it. But a lot of it feels like it's luck about people who manage to slip through the net, and there's room for half a dozen, and then everybody
Yeah.
else is just struggling.
Yeah.
Stand up especially, it's a bad business. It's a bad business because it's not healthy when 1% of the practitioners make 99% of the income. You would never find that in law or medicine or teaching or accountancy or sheet metal and roofing. There's a middle class. There's no middle class in comedy. You're either struggling or you're kind of famous, and there's nothing in between. Until you reach a certain age and you can sort of do corporate shows, and then there is a bit of a middle class, but you have to be able to tough it out until then.
Yeah. Have you changed the way that you approach, or do you still try to discover new talent?
Yeah, I have a school called the Humber School of Comedy that I've been operating for the last 15 years.
So you grow
And we
them then.
have it's a degree granting institution, so you can say to your parents, "See, I've got a diploma." And we have about 30 or 40 students a year to do the 2-year course. So I find people that way. We have amateur nights in every single one of our locations across the country. I'm at the one in Toronto a lot, of course, because it's geographically contiguous for me. But I tend to go out once a year to every club I have and watch all the amateurs and give them notes.
Out of the 30 to 40, how many do you think like have the drive and the talent to actually like get to a certain level? Like, is it less
Well,
than one, or is it like a dozen?
no,
Like,
maybe half a dozen a year actually have managed to get some career. Of course, remember it takes time. The guy who was the head writer for Conan is a Humber graduate. Nathan Fielder is a Humber graduate. He talked about it, in fact, in the New York article about a month and a half ago. Nikki Payne is a Humber graduate. And then there's a lot of stand-ups who are working that are Humber graduates that are, making a decent living out of Yak-X. So, 6 out of 30 or 40 sounds maybe not so great, except if you were in the arts program at York as an actor, it would be the same percentage, if not even lower.
Yeah, that's like 15 to 20%. That's not bad. I mean,
It's not
I
bad.
thought it'd be lower. Yeah.
No, it's about a half a dozen people manage to find something to do in the field.
That's amazing because that your induction was well reserved. Then I want to know, Kenny, or sorry, I called you Kenny. That's funny. I want to know, Spenny,
Mark,
if you
calling me Kenny, Mark.
I would never make that mistake. I would,
It's
you know
a
why?
respect.
I just flipped to Facebook where Kenny Robinson, who I also wanted to surprise you with, I just looked at to see if he got the last message that I sent, because we've been going back and forth, and that's why I called you Kenny. Okay, it was total coincidence. I swear to you.
Bullshit. Go ahead.
No, I'm looking at it right now.
Whatever.
But I wanted to know what it was like to deliver the speech. How long was it? Was it personal? Was it a tearjerker?
Well, it was a classic Kenny.
Both?
We were both supposed to do it. Kenny ended up getting quite sick, actually. His whole family was sick. So I read a letter that Kenny wrote, which was funny. I'm a straight man. And I think I made a joke to Mark, when are they going to open the straight man Hall of Fame? And then you topped my joke, because I said I would be Bud Abbott, me, and I can't remember the other person I said. And then you said someone was actually a great straight man. Who was it? I can't
Lorne
remember.
Michaels.
Lorne Michaels, which is just that's Mark Breslin. Like, he thinks out of the box. Like, I never have thought of more Lorne Michaels as a straight man, but I haven't watched the video you told me to watch yet, but
Yeah.
when he was a performer, Lorne Michaels
Yeah,
was a
he was
performer.
very good.
Yeah.
He was very, very good. But Hart got all the laugh lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, and then I didn't do, because I'm not a stand-up. I just spoke from the heart, which is really all I ever do, about what the man means to me, and what I learned from him, and what he exposed me to. And I'll take his word for it that he was happy with it, but I was nervous.
Did
I
you
was very
write it
happy.
or did you improvise it?
I wrote it, and it was clumsy. I had glasses, because that's not what I do. Even though I do it with Kenny, it's a different prospect. Yeah, I wrote down my experience with him. That's it. From the first time I remember seeing him. Actually, I mentioned this before you came on, the Harborfront shows he used to do, which was my cousin Marjorie's. So he can confirm all the stuff that I told you before he came on the air.
I believed you. I believed you.
Yeah, no, I know. I understand.
Well, listen.
Yeah, the only difference was the shows were weekly, not monthly.
Right.
Hmm.
Oh, were you listening to me?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I don't know. I didn't even know you were here. Come on. All right.
I was lurking.
You were lurking.
Yeah.
I just want to. Yeah.
I want to talk to Mark, because I had Mark on my podcast a long time ago, and I feel like audiences have become dumber. And the Lenny Bruce's, and I may be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong, but I'd like to ask Mark about what he thinks about that.
I think the audiences have become wider, not necessarily dumber. So what I mean by that is, there was a time when comedy, stand-up comedy, going to a comedy club was a real vanguard experience, and only people who were really in the know would
Right.
go.
Right.
Now everybody goes to stand-up clubs, and because it's everybody, you get a really good cross-section of what the public is all about, and that includes not particularly intelligent people, not particularly sophisticated people, or anything. But I guess I could say that the number of really brilliant comics in any generation is probably the same, but the number of mediocre ones grow.
Interesting.
Are you really referring to, Spenny, the fact that a lot of comedians are afraid to do certain kinds of jokes?
No,
because of the crowd.
I have a theory, which I would love if Mark,
I'll be back in a sec. I'm just getting some water.
I would love it if Mark disagreed with me, but I have this theory that I came up with, and I don't know what I'm talking about, honestly, which is that Will Ferrell, who I love, kind of dumbed down comedy to a point where acting silly became funny, where what I found was funny was a little bit more intellectual. And I'm sure, because I'm such I'm not I'm not on the pulse of clubs like Mark would be, so I could be totally wrong, but that's how it feels to me. That Will Ferrell, that style of just looking funny and acting funny and doing stupid shit has sort of become the mass comedy thing, and someone like someone who's more Woody Allen, for example, just wouldn't be a big deal today because of it, because he draws on philosophy, he draws on all kinds of deeper issues in his comedy, which I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
Is Will Ferrell actually known to be like a consummate stand-up though?
No, I don't mean stand-up. I just mean
okay.
Comedy. I'm not talking specifically stand-up. I'd love to hear.
I don't think it's just Will Ferrell. I think
Jim Carrey comes to mind too.
There are other comics that probably accelerated that. I just think the whole culture has become kind of dumbed down.
Yeah,
because
that's what I was trying to say.
In the 1950s and 1960s and into the 70s, people who of taste wanted to be Jewish. And then they stopped wanting to be Jewish. So because they stopped imitating Jews, they started imitating Gentiles. And when they started imitating Gentiles, they started imitating people who weren't that smart. I loved watching.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Follow this. Yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, he's whoa.
I kept on wondering. I'm like, am I a Gentile? I don't even know what a Gentile is.
What kind of a left turn was that?
No, I literally don't believe what you're saying, but I believe there's some truth in it. That which is getting back to Jews in comedy. But Jerry Lewis was the ultimate. He was Jewish, and he was the ultimate silly comedian with the fake teeth.
Yeah, I never found silly stuff funny. I never found John Belushi funny.
I never.
And
Me
I
too.
know that's
Oh,
a
me too.
heretical thing to say.
No,
But
I
never
agree with
found-
you.
Sorry?
I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was talented, but I never found him funny. He never made me
Right.
laugh.
Right.
I
A
know
lot
this
of
might.
people didn't
I know
make
this
me
might.
laugh. This is
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
game that comics play. Who doesn't make you laugh? Who is
Billy
famous?
Crystal doesn't make me laugh.
Who? Billy Crystal?
He doesn't make me laugh. I don't know.
Billy Crystal made me laugh in City Slickers. I thought he was really funny in City Slickers. I saw him on Broadway do Mr. Saturday Night.
I think he's
was just
talented. I just don't think he's funny. Yeah.
I just
Of
found
course.
it amazing an 80-year-old could remember all those lines and show up to work every day. I was impressed with that part of it.
Well, he
that's
did
for
the
sure.
movie. He did the movie, right?
Yeah, but I saw it live as it's a musical now, and
Right.
as everything will be. They'll take anything. Schindler's List will be a musical. The girl in the red coat. So
Don't go
Well,
over
actually,
there.
now that you
Yeah.
mention it, I have to say this. So, Mark, again, he's so zoned into. He reads probably papers and all the stuff I don't do. But he was hip to this off Broadway New York show that he told me years ago. I still haven't seen it. We talked about it at the Hall of Fame thing.
Charlie Victor Romeo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tell
but
the
you know what
audience
you can-
about this.
You know what you can see that's similar is a show called Mayday, which is a Canadian co-production, which has been running for 15 seasons. And there's, I think, 10 shows each season. And they recreate plane crashes. And then they show the sort of the cause of what the plane crash was. They bring in all these experts. It's a fantastic show.
But tell them about Victor. The way
So
you
Charlie
described it.
Victor Romeo was a show I saw in New York, and it had to be 20 years ago. And they did it in a storefront in the Lower East Side. And the storefront was long and narrow, which was perfect because they set the chairs up as if you were on a plane with a long aisle going all the way down. And at the front was the cockpit. And what they did was they took black box recordings of plane crashes and recreated them. And there were about 8 or 9 in this show, which ran about,
brilliant.
90 minutes,
Yeah.
95 minutes. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. They it was the exact they didn't edit it at all. So it would start off and there would be a screen. It would say what the plane was, where it was going, how many people were on board, and then that would go off, and then the scene would start. And the pilot and the co-pilot would be in the cabin. They were in the, in the cockpit flying the plane, and a stewardess would come in and she'd say, "Would you like some coffee, gentlemen?" And you go, "Yeah, I think I'll have some coffee. Sure. How was your weekend?" "Oh, my weekend was fine." Boom. What was that? I don't know. Anyway, and then they would keep talking, and then boom, 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 and then they start screaming. It was fantastic. It was just fantastic. And the best part was I had to fly back to Toronto the next day.
That's how dark. He's very dark because
Yeah.
when you came up to York, you were excited about this Sam Kinison that no one had heard of, and he's very dark. You're very dark. You have dark. When you accepted your award, I fucking busted a gut with you made fun of the trophy and the meaningless of it all. It's dark. I love it.
So much of comedy is really just being honest. It's the
Yeah.
honesty that no one else will or has the position to say. You can't be honest with your spouse. You can't be honest with your boss. You can't be honest with your kids. You can't even be honest with your friends. But you can be honest when you're on stage because they think it's real but not real. And yet it's real. So my line, which everybody always loved that I used to do, a little later on in the show, we'll be watching our featured guest, Mr. Larry Horowitz. And then a little later on after that, many of us here will be going home and sleeping with people we don't really love. Now, where's the joke? Where is the joke in that? I
It's the
didn't
truth.
exaggerate. I didn't do any of the things that people, have identified as comic sort of tropes or comic techniques. All I did was just tell the truth.
Yeah,
But nobody wants to say. Yeah.
But they're also it's coming from you. So
Right.
my example of this was I think Marjorie told me about this. She said you've got to get a script for the Andy Griffith Show, which was a show that I loved. It was an old black and white show with Don Knotts and Andy Griffith and Jim Neighbors was in it and Aunt
Opie.
B and Opie. And I went out to a place called the Hollywood Canteen, and I bought a script, actual script from the show, not a transcription of the show, but the original script. And you read it, there's not a joke in it. So the joke comes from the character.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it has been said
You
that
are
all
a
comedy
character,
begins
my
with
friend.
character.
Yeah.
That's
You are
very
that,
true.
because there's something about your aura and your delivery, you know.
Well, also it's the context. I'm on a stage of a comedy club.
Right.
If I said that at the water cooler of a
Right.
of a business, they probably wouldn't see it as being funny.
I
Because
also
the mechanics of comedy, that's what it really
I
is.
like when comedy manifests in the comedy roast kind of way, because I don't know if you guys know this, but like I'm pretty sure it was the comedy roast that influenced battle rapping to go from two guys rapping over beats and making stuff up to two guys doing almost like a theatrical performance. And it's just like a comedy roast, except it's
It
in
is
rhyme.
funny. Yeah, they laugh when they.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
And we just actually lost Pat Stay this year, who was probably the world's greatest battle rapper. He was from Nova Scotia.
You know Corey, guy Corey, he's Canadian.
Yeah,
He's like number
Pat
2
Stay's
in the world.
Canadian. He's from Nova Scotia, and he destroyed Corey. I know who you're talking about. He absolutely destroyed him. But I'm not taking anything away from him. But Pat Stay was a beast. But the similarities though between the comedy roast and battle raps are amazing. You could say anything you want. It's like the Aristocrats. You can literally say anything, and they shake hands at the end, and one of them is declared the winner, and it's great. It would be neat to see like a format in comedy that was similar to that, where
there is
two comics. There
is. We do something at Yak Yaks once a month, and it's a comic named Anish Anwar, and he's got this show which is called Your Hood's a Joke. And what he does is he has people do a rap battle, but not about each other, but about the place that they live in or they're from.
Oh my God,
which is
that's
great.
So good.
So it's either neighborhoods in Toronto that people know, like, Forest Hill versus Rexdale,
Right.
or something, or countries, Israel versus Iran. And
Can
he
I
finds
apply
to
be on that show?
I'm sorry?
Can I apply to be on that show?
You have to
Really?
do some writing, but I guess so.
I know. Well, I am a rapper, so I'm already halfway there. I'm a pretty fucking good one too.
Okay, but it's not a rap. It's just
spoken
it's a roast.
word. Oh,
yeah, it's roast battle.
Okay. I would do it in rhyme just to make everyone.
I think that's asking too much of the comic. You'd run out of comics who could do that pretty quickly. That's a very specific skill.
But I'd be the only guy that did it.
Then we wouldn't be able to do it more than once, and we're always looking for something we can do.
That truth thing that he's talking about.
Yeah, you can't make it in comedy, James. How dare you, sir? How dare you? Well, I'm happy that you guys will be able to connect. We are running now to 8:00, so we are going to wrap up. What do you have going on, Spenny? I noticed that you have a tour coming up in December. Are you doing when do you leave? The 7th or something?
Yeah, I'm doing a tour: Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, Hamilton, and Red Deer.
Wow.
Actually, the rowdiest Kenny versus Spenny live show was in Red Deer. Police were called. It was amazing. So we're doing that. And that's a Christmas tour, which is pretty funny. A, because we're Jewish, and B, because, we're just really trying to make money. That's the truth. And, we've played these markets so many times. So the Christmas is a good way to sort of do something new. And get that money again. So that's that. And, I'm doing music. I play gigs here and there and everywhere. I'm going to be at Humber with Kenny doing a lecture. No, I think it's an interview. Mark, you're interviewing?
Yeah, it's an interview format.
Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to that and the free lunch Mark's going to buy me. And everything's good. That's where what I'm doing.
Mark, how about yourself?
Well, I announced last week that we're opening up a brand new club in Winnipeg, which is kind of a big deal. And the reason it's a big deal is that, let's face it, COVID has kicked our ass. COVID kicked the ass of everybody doing live performance. So we went from 14 clubs down to 9, and we had about 5 clubs that we were going to be opening that we never got around to opening, because why would anybody invest in a nightclub when you can't put people in it?
Yeah.
So the fact that we're opening up in Winnipeg and it's a big club in a beautiful place in the Fort Garry Hotel means a lot to us, because I'm hoping this will be the first of many new clubs to open.
Are you playing us out?
Yeah. Can I?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I got me religion, honey. Man, I'm gonna join the Baptist church. You know, I got me a religion. Baby, I'm gonna join the Baptist church. I'll be like a Baptist preacher, and I sure won't have to worry. You know, I got me a religion, baby, on this very day. I got me a religion, baby, on this very day. But the whiskey and women now, they will not let me stray. You know, I'm preaching the blues, girl. I want everybody to shout. I'm preaching the blues, and I want everybody to shout. Ow! I'm gonna work it like a prisoner, baby. I'm gonna work my time on that. I want you to jump straight up and down.
Woo! Well done, sir. Spenny, Mark Breslin, thank you guys for joining us. I really appreciate it. You have a good night.
You're welcome, Spenny. I'll see you on the 16th.
Nice. Accidentally cut off Spenny before Mark could send the message, but I'm sure they'll hook up on the 16th. That was awesome. Full disclosure. I wanted Mark to be a surprise to Spenny, and I know that it kind of seemed like that. But Mark gets into the green room, and then he sees the private chat, and he doesn't realize that Spenny can see it if Mark messages me. So Mark messaged me, and then I look at Spenny's face, and Spenny's like, and then to his credit, he pretended that he had no idea. But then I was like, "You saw him, didn't you?" He's like, "Yeah, but it's fine." So that was the acting chops of Spenny, and frankly, I'm fairly impressed. Big thanks to Spenny. I didn't know he could sing. I didn't know he had the singing chops like that at the end. That was dope. I had no idea. And you know, not to take anything away, you know, from my interest in Spenny's career, but I knew he played the guitar and I knew he was really good at playing guitar, but I had no idea that he could sing like that. And I thought that was dope. I was really impressed. So again, my thanks to Mark Breslin, founder of Yuck Yucks. My thanks to Spenny. And who do I have coming up? Oh, I have one show coming up on Tuesday. Her name is Karen Cleach. She is an actor. She starred in a slew of like series and horror movies in like the early 2000s. Then she took a break for like 12 years to become a mom. She has a really interesting history where she went to Dawson College, and she also spent a lot of her youth in Lac Mégantic, and both those places have such well-known famous tragedies. And I talked to her a little bit today about how that kind of shapes the artistic part of people, and you know, and really interesting person. She is also the sister-in-law of my brother-in-law, which is weird and convoluted. And yeah, so that should be a fun conversation. I also have on December 5th Megan Murphy. Megan is a person who was actually just reinstated into Twitter, but she kind of made her bones as being one of the original people who were banned for life from Twitter. I don't honestly remember what it is, but I promise to do the deep dive before I have her on the show. And I want everybody to have a good weekend. If you run into Jonathan Dennis, just turn around and walk the other way really quickly. A lot of things could happen. You could get peed on, you know, your court case could be all fucked up. whatever. Just if you see Jonathan Dennis, just turn away and run for the hills. And we will see you next time on Blackballed.
Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.